Okay, so in this video I'm just going to lead you through a very basic analysis in SPSS. And this is with some made up data. I made the data up, and so nothing is real, but it will illustrate for you some of the basic things you can do in SPSS. I'm using SPSS 26. I've been using SPSS since it was 6.5, and with what I'm going to show you today, it was pretty much the same all the way back in 6.5. Not that much has changed. There have been a couple of minor changes, but anyway. So I assume that what I am showing you now will probably be good for the next few years. This is 2019 that I'm recording this. I think it'll be good probably through 2025 or, well, who knows? I mean, next year SPSS may look completely different. Software engineers love to do that kind of thing. But anyway, hopefully it lasts a while. The first step, you've got SPSS open. I'm not going to show you that in this video. You have SPSS open and you need to open some data. I'm going to show you actually how to import a text data file. So .txt or .dat both are ASCII, so-called ASCII file formats, tab delimited. It'll also work for comma delimited and so forth, but I'm going to just show you how to open that because if you can open that, you can certainly open an SPSS native format data file, the so-called .save format. That's even easier. So if you can figure out this, you can figure out that. So you're just going to go to Open Data, and then the place where your data is. Now my data that I want to open is sitting here, and yet I don't see a data file. Why is that? Well, because SPSS is looking for files of type SPSS statistics. That's the .save or .zsave, I guess is the newer format of SPSS data file. And I need to tell SPSS to instead look for text data. And as soon as I tell it that, boom, it found some text data. So I'm going to click on that and open, and I get an import wizard. So the import wizard is going to help me import this data, and actually I happen to know that because of the way this data is formatted, I can just click next until everything's done. Next, don't need to change anything here. Although if you did need to change it, if your data imports incorrectly, you can try changing some of these parameters to see if you can get it to import correctly. But this is going to import correctly if I just keep clicking next and finish. All right, and there you've done it. You've opened up a text data file. And you can see the numbers in here. You can see even this is a pretty small data set, but nevertheless it is a little bit challenging probably to just look at these raw numbers and make any sense of them. And of course, if this were a real data set with hundreds or tens of thousands or even a few million observations, you certainly wouldn't be able to make sense of it by looking at the raw data. So how would we do a basic descriptive analysis of these data? Well, one thing to think about is age and income. What kind of variables are those going to be? Well, they're going to be continuous variables, or at least approximately continuous variables. So frequencies, probably not going to be the most useful thing to look at right off the bat, especially if this were real with thousands and thousands of observations of continuous variables. Frequencies are not fun to look at in those cases. We can look at them with a histogram, and we'll do that in a second. But we'll probably just start with means and standard deviations. So how do I do that here in SPSS? Well, we do that under Analyze. So if you see these menus up at the top here, we're going to go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and then we're going to go to Descriptives first. We'll go to Frequencies, and I'll show you what that's about in just a second. But we're going to start here in Descriptives. Okay, and then I can throw in whatever variables I want the descriptive statistics for. Here under Options, I can change what descriptives it's going to give me. You can see here that by default it's going to give me mean, standard deviation, min, and max. I may want the min and max. Sometimes I do. It's handy sometimes to make sure that your data were entered correctly by checking out what the min and max are. For example, if you're measuring a scale that goes from 1 to 7 and it turns out your max is 999, something's gone terribly wrong. That's a missing value, which I'll go into in a different video. But anyway, sometimes it's useful to check those out. I'm actually going to turn them off, though. I don't want my min and max. You know what I do want, though? I want my variance. So let's get standard deviation and variance and the mean. Sometimes you might want skewness and kurtosis. I'll talk about those in another video. Anyway, continue. Okay, and what most people are going to do, and the only reason that I think these videos might be a little bit different from other SPSS introductory videos that are out there, most people are going to hit OK at this point, and they're going to get their output. That's not a good way to use SPSS, in my opinion. I think there's a better way, and I'm going to teach it to you, of course. and that is don't click run, or don't click OK. Click paste. What does paste do? Well, if I click paste, oh, clicked on my other screen here. Let me pull it over here. Paste writes a computer program for you. So now you have a computer program. This is SPSS Syntax. I think a lot of people don't even know that SPSS does syntax. They think SAS is the syntax statistical package, and SPSS is all the graphical user interface. But no, SPSS has syntax to it. And why would you ever want to do this? Why do that? Well, the reason is that if you have a data set that you're working with on a regular basis and you're adding observations to it all the time, having a syntax file that does all the analysis for you saves you a lot of time over going and clicking through the graphical user interface menu over and over again. And another reason to do it is in a real data analysis, there's usually at least a few dozen steps in the analysis. You often forget what those steps were. If you calculate a new variable that's some combination of measured variables, that sort of thing, you may forget exactly how you calculated it months and years down the line. For me, something I did in the morning, I might forget that afternoon. But if you've saved your syntax, you don't have to remember. The syntax remembers. So, and you can also go back to the syntax and read through it and remind yourself of what exactly you did. So here I have the syntax, and right here, this is telling, SPSS is telling me right here what it thinks I want to run, and in this case it's correct. Sometimes it's not. When it's not correct, you have to click and drag to tell SPSS I want this syntax to run. But in this case, if I just have my cursor at the end, which it was by default when I made the syntax, SPSS is correctly guessing exactly what it is I want to do. So I just click run, and then find my output window. That's not my output window. Nope, that's still not my output window. Okay, where did my output window go? There's my output window. Okay, and there you see I have my descriptive statistics. There's the mean age was 31, mean income 42. I'm going to assume that income, I made these data up. So let's take it as if these income are in tens of thousands of dollars. So this would be $42,400 a year. Standard deviation and variance for both of those numbers. And this is not a bad descriptive analysis right there. We can do some other things though. One thing we might want to do is check the distributions of our data to see if they're normally distributed or approximately normally distributed. That's very easy to do in graphs. I'm going to go through the legacy dialogues because I think that's easier. One of these days I'll learn the chart builder and then I'll make a video and show you how to use it. Whereas right now I don't know how to use it, so I'm going to go to legacy dialogues and histogram, and let's do age first. Let's go ahead and display a normal curve. Why not? And again, don't click OK. OK will do it. It'll make your histogram for you, but put it on your syntax. Paste. And then go to your syntax. Here's the syntax. And now, if I believe it'll run that again without clicking and dragging. Yep. There we go. Oh, that is definitely not a normally distributed variable. That is a dramatically not normally distributed variable. When I made these data up, I did not normally distribute the ages. Okay, pretty sure the income is going to look the same. All right, so let's do the same thing for income then. Graphs, legacy dialogues, histogram, trade out age. Oh, I should go slower and show you what it is I'm doing here. So age, I would just I double clicked it actually to click it out, but here I'll be a good boy and I'll use the arrow there. Income, put arrow income. Let me show you another way to put variables into these slots in SPSS. Instead of using the arrow, sometimes the arrow is convenient to use. Sometimes it's more convenient to just drag it over like that. So it's just a click and drag. I click, hold down the click, drag it over, and there it is. Paste. Go back to my syntax and run it. Yeah, that's a little better looking variable there. So it looks like I was a little bit more normal thinking when I made up the income data here. Obviously, that's not a normal distribution, but in a small distribution, and this is only 10 paired observations, you're not going to get perfect normality in that. This would be very typical of a sample taken from a normal distribution. This would not. All right, so now we've visualized all our distributions to see if they're normal or not. This one's definitely not. This one, I'd give it a pass. There's tests we can do, and I'll go into those Kolmogorov, Smirnov tests. I don't know if I said that correctly or not. Anyway, there are tests you can do to see if data are normal or not. Of course, with this small of a sample, those tests would be tremendously underpowered. The Kolmogorov-Smirnov test will probably say that this does not deviate from normality, even though it clearly does. That's just because of a lack of statistical power. But anyway, now so we've got means and standard deviations and variances. We've gotten histograms of our distributions. One thing that you cannot get through descriptive statistics and descriptives that you can get through frequencies, if I go to the frequencies here, and I go to statistics, is the median and mode. Those are not available through, if I come through Analyze Descriptives, and Options, you can see here that median and mode are not options here. So the descriptive statistics descriptives procedure here does not give me median or mode, but the frequencies statistics does. So I could get out mean, median, and mode for both of these variables. I could also get things, you can see here, things like quartiles, cut points for however many equal groups I want, and so on. These things make more sense, obviously, with a bigger data set. And I can also get my measures of dispersion, same ones, standard deviation, variance if I want those, and skewness and kurtosis. Now, I'm going to go ahead and leave display frequency tables on, although if I were doing this analysis for real, I would probably turn them off, again, because these are continuous variables. So I don't really care about category frequency counts in continuous variables. So I would probably turn these off because they're going to be ugly, but I'll go ahead and show you that. So paste, come back to my syntax, and run. And you can see why. Like if I had 1,000 observations here on a continuous variable, this table would just be monster huge. And you can see here that most of the frequencies are 1 because in a continuous variable, it can take on any real value. So of course you're not going to have a lot of examples of, let's say, the value 31.32 or something. You know, you're not going to get a lot of examples of that specific value in a continuous variable. So you're going to get big, ugly frequency tables that don't tell you anything. In fact, you can see that this one hardly compresses the data at all. All it tells me is, oh, I do have 2 people in this data set whose age is 24. Same thing for income. You can see here there's not a single income that has a frequency greater than 1. So this is basically just a recapitulation of the data right here. Ugly. But you can see here, here's the output of the descriptive statistics that I asked for, including median and mode, mean, median, and mode, and the standard deviation and variance for that data. So that by itself is already a pretty standard descriptive analysis. And you can see that I did both of those variables at the same time. You can do all your variables at once. If you have 100 variables, 200, it doesn't matter. Just throw them all in there. Actually, some SPSS procedures limit how many variables you can throw in at a time. Correlation, for example, I believe will limit you to 100 variables. I don't think that the descriptives do, though. Anyway, I should probably stop there. This video is long enough. How to do a very basic descriptive analysis in SPSS.